If you haven't heard yet, the city of Philadelphia just passed a law requiring new regulations on wholesaling residential real estate. On this video, I'm going to talk about those regulations and how this new law is going to impact wholesalers, not just in Philadelphia, but the entire industry. You see, I believe regulation is coming, and it's coming fast to a city near you, and you need to be aware and prepared. So if you're a wholesaler or aspiring wholesaler, this is a video you don't want to miss coming up.
This video is brought to you by Flipster, the nation's #1 real estate software, with tools for finding, funding, and flipping houses. Check it out now at getflipster.com.
If you're new here, I'm Jerry Norton, and I went from dead broke to millionaire flipping houses, and after doing 1,000 deals, I created this channel to help you master the art of wholesaling and flipping real estate so you can live your dream life. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified when new videos are released. Starting January 19, 2021, real estate wholesalers are required to obtain a license and adhere to ethics constraints. The Philadelphia City Council just unanimously passed legislation cracking down on wholesalers who, according to the city officials, are, quote, exploiting underinformed property owners. Now, the argument is that wholesalers falsify information, misrepresent values, and in effect, lie and deceive homeowners in an effort to make a quick profit. Now, according to a lawyer at the hearing when this law passed, he said the new regulations, quote, would curb the most predatory and out-of-control tactics of residential property wholesalers. So it's clear to me that the intent of this law, like all regulation, is in the name of protecting the consumer. City Council member Alan Dahm, the legislation's lead sponsor, said all homeowners deserve market value for their homes, and everyone deserves to work with the knowledge they need in order to make the right decision about their financial future. But what's this really all about? You may be wondering, is this really about protecting unknowing homeowners, or is something else going on here? Now, I've got a theory. There's been a long-standing animosity between wholesalers and real estate agents who often compete with each other. And in many cases, wholesalers earn way more than licensed agents, so I can't really blame them for being a little jealous. And it just so happens that Alan Dahm, the city councilman leading the charge to pass this bill, is a licensed real estate broker in the city. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's no surprise that the Philadelphia Association of Realtors has unequivocally endorsed this bill. But hey, let's get past that and look at the bigger picture. History shows us that when an industry becomes big enough, local and state governments enact laws in the name of protecting the consumers. It happened a long time ago to real estate agents. They have to get a license, follow ethical standards of conduct, pay fees, and are highly regulated. Why? To protect homeowners. And now it's happening to wholesalers because wholesaling is no longer an obscure underground activity. It's a thriving industry in every single market. And as such, regulation is coming, and it's coming fast. Last year, the entire state of Illinois came down hard on wholesalers. In Illinois, you have to have a real estate license to do any type of flipping. And if you violate the law in any way at all, it's a $25,000 fine. And I did a video where I break down that law in detail. I'll put the link to that video in the description below for you. If you plan on doing deals in Illinois, you definitely should watch that video, but all wholesalers should watch that video so that you can get an idea of what's coming, because I believe other states are going to follow suit. Earlier this year, the state of Oklahoma also passed a new law that limits wholesalers' ability to market properties they don't actually own. And I did a video that breaks down that new bill as well, link in the description. My point is, regulation is inevitable. It's coming, and you better get on board. Part of the problem is, overall, there is a very negative sentiment about wholesalers. The Oklahoma law that was passed is called the PREDATORY Real Estate Wholesaler Prohibition Act. They put predatory and wholesaler in the same sentence, and that's what Philly is doing as well, demonizing wholesalers. In regards to the new law in Philly, the city council stated, "We need this legislation to protect homeowners from the targeted, aggressive, and predatory tactics and misleading practices employed to siphon them of valuable assets, their homes." To me, this is really sad because by and large, I believe wholesalers are a huge blessing to the marketplace by helping distressed sellers and doing the hard work to find and source properties for developers, flippers, and investors who revitalize neighborhoods. Now, wholesalers play a vital role in the real estate market, and my wholesaler friends are some of the most honest and ethical people I know, who have a heart of gold for helping distressed sellers. Unfortunately, the few scammers ruin it for the rest of us, and that's just the way it is. Personally, I'm not a big fan of government regulation, mostly because the government sucks at whatever they do, so these new laws will more than likely be mismanaged, but regardless, rather than fight it, I'm actually joining the cause. I'd like a seat at the table, and I'm hopeful that the new regulations coming are going to eliminate the fly-by-nights and the get-rich-quick crowd and raise the standard for the industry. I've personally had an active real estate license for like 15 years, solely for investing, and I believe all wholesalers and flippers should get licensed. Now, I did a video with my friend Steve Trang where we discussed the benefits for wholesalers to get licensed, aside from it being mandatory. I'll put the link to that video in the description below, and you can watch it later. So let's go back to Philadelphia and take a closer look at this new law, because I think it gives a good idea of what you and I can expect to see happen in other cities and states. And also be sure to stay to the end of this video, because I'm going to share a few tips for how you can prepare for more regulations. As far as I can see doing my research, there are 6 stipulations that wholesalers must follow now, but I'm not a lawyer, and this is just my interpretation from doing my own research. So you do your own due diligence before you transact in Philly. The first stipulation requires wholesalers to pay a $200 licensing fee called a residential property wholesaler license. Now, having this license is a big deal. Listen to this. Any agreement of sale entered into by a residential property wholesaler who was not licensed at the time of the solicitation may be rescinded at any time prior to the transfer of title. In other words, if you're not properly licensed, the seller doesn't have to honor the contract and can terminate it at any time up until closing. Now, oddly enough, it doesn't appear that these new license holders are required to take professional classes or pass exams like real estate agents are required to, which is weird because don't the classes and exams ensure that the license holders are trained and educated? Seems a bit contradictory to me, but regardless, that's what it is. Stipulation 2 is wholesalers will have to disclose all companies in which they hold an ownership interest. So no hiding behind LLCs or other entities. Stipulation 3 is a background check. Wholesalers who have been convicted of fraud or who have violated ethics laws within the past 6 years of their application are disqualified from getting licensed. So no second chances. Stipulation 4 is wholesalers must show proof of insurance. Not sure exactly what type of insurance that is, but I'm guessing it's an errors and omissions policy similar to what real estate agents are required to carry. Stipulation 5 is at least 3 days before concluding a purchase, licensed wholesalers must present sellers with a disclosure referred to as a seller's bill of rights, explaining how to independently research their property's value, such as the Philadelphia Office of Property Assessments website or other real estate assessment resources. It will also require wholesalers inform homeowners about their ability to hire a real estate agent or to seek legal counsel and identify other resources deemed appropriate. They are referring to this disclosure as a code of ethics. Now, the legislation states that wholesalers can lose their license if they, quote, knowingly make any substantial misrepresentations, make any false promises, untruthfully advertise, or engage in any conduct which demonstrates bad faith, dishonesty, untrustworthiness, or incompetency. So interpret that how you will. Stipulation 6 is that the city is going to establish a do not solicit list for property owners who have expressed a desire to not be approached to sell or rent their properties. Now, I'm guessing this list is going to be made publicly available for wholesalers to check before contacting sellers. And in case you're wondering, any unlicensed wholesalers violating this new law will face a Class 3 offense and will be subject to fines, but the exact amount has not been divulged yet. So what to do about it if you're a wholesaler in Philly or really a wholesaler anywhere else, and if you're like me and you plan on being in the industry for a long time? Well, first of all, wholesaling isn't going anywhere anytime soon. There will always be a need for sellers who want a quick sale, as is for all cash, who don't want to list with an agent or go public or pay commissions. But I do have 3 tips for you. Tip number 1 is to embrace the change and get licensed. Follow the rules and use this as an opportunity to separate yourself from the rest of the crowd. Regulations make the barrier to entry more difficult, which means you have an opportunity to elevate your position on the marketplace. the cream always rises to the top. This is your opportunity. Tip number 2, learn and follow ethical standards and best practices. Be honest and forthcoming with sellers. I make it a point to give sellers all of their options, including selling their property with a real estate agent. Never take advantage or misrepresent the truth. No amount of money is worth losing sleep over doing harm to a seller. Do what you say and say what you do. Now, I did a video where I discuss how to be an ethical wholesaler. Be sure to watch that video and do an honest evaluation on your own ethics. I'll put the link to that video in the description below for you. Tip number 3 is consider double closing your deals. Now, double closing is simply when a wholesaler uses one funding source to close both transactions. The A to B transaction is between the seller and the wholesaler. The B to C transaction is between the wholesaler and the buyer. Now, by doing a double closing, the wholesaler actually buys the property and goes on title, even if only for a few minutes. Now, clearly, most wholesalers don't have tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars lying around to buy distressed properties and resell them to real estate investors. However, you can utilize a funding service called transactional funding to briefly borrow the money to close on both transactions with both parties. Now, I'll put a link to a video in the description below that explains how transactional funding works. But basically, the wholesaler receives 100% of the purchase price and closing costs from the transactional lender. And then once funds are deposited, the seller is paid on the first closing, then title is transferred to the wholesaler. From there, the end buyer investor purchases the property from the wholesaler on closing 2. So in essence, the wholesaler utilizes funds allocated to them to officially purchase the property, then turns around and sells the property to the cash buyer investor, and the difference received would be the wholesaler's profit. Now, this is not ideal because you pay more in fees, but for now, it would solve the wholesaler's assigning contracts issue. Now, that is unless the regulatory boards catch on to that and mandate a seasoning rule like FHA does. Time will tell, but I've been seriously considering providing transactional funding as a service. If you think that's a good idea, leave a comment and say, Jerry, I love that idea. You are a flipping genius. Now, I'm going to keep an eye on Philly as well as other markets that are enacting regulation and make sure that I stay one step ahead and that I'm here for you as well. But for those of you that are serious about getting a real estate license, I want you to watch a video where I break down all of the details about how to get licensed. So watch that now. And finally, if you haven't, be sure to subscribe to my channel. With something like 600 videos, this is the #1 channel on YouTube for all things wholesaling and flipping. And I'll see you on the next video.